To our schedule, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Evonne Carter. She is currently the Vice President of Milwaukee Area Technical College, Oak Creek campus. Dr. Carter also has served as the Interim Provost, Associate Provost, Dean of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and is a faculty member of the English Department at MATC. I like their acronym, MATC, LCCC, that'll roll off your tongue in time. Okay, she holds a PhD in urban education as well as a master's degree in curriculum and instruction from the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Her bachelor's degree in education is from Carroll University in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Dr. Carter has extensive experience in program development, program evaluation, curriculum development, DACM process, faculty development, faculty coaching, assessment of student learning, outcomes, student evaluation, AQUIP, PEAK, continuous improvement, and teaching English and communication skills along with GED. So, did that go dead on me? No, it's still there. Okay. With that, when we have questions, I'll bring around the mic to you, but we'll let Dr. Carter say a few words first, or as many as she would like. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have to stand here? Good. I'm not a good stander. Well, thank you for coming this afternoon. This is hopefully a fun event for all of us. As Mr. Mosher said, I'm Evonne Carter, and I am the Vice President of the Oak Creek campus of Milwaukee Area Technical College. That college is a little bit bigger than yours. There's probably in total about 45,000 students that we see. Not head count, but it's a duplicated head count. And there are 4 campuses, and I'm the Vice President of one of them. And I've been doing that since February. So when I saw the posting, because I think most people want to know why I would leave, and I've said this to a couple groups, so if I'm repeating myself, I hope it's the same story. What I really was intrigued by was the position description and the kinds of things that you're looking for in your next academic vice president. And when I looked at the list, it was quite a long list, and it looked like there were lots of things that needed to be done, things needed to be fixed, things needed to be probably more aligned. I'm sure lots of things go on. As a faculty member, and I was a faculty member at my school for over 20 years, really the faculty do keep things going, and in spite of whatever happens, they really care mostly about their students succeeding and making sure that their programs are finished and the integrity of what they're offering is still in place. So I know that from what I've read and some of the conversations I've had today with some groups, there has been some incontinuity, I'll say, in terms of some of the leadership and some of the positions. And I think you still have some positions that are interim and people who've just started. And that's not atypical for colleges. That happens. I have also been a consultant evaluator for the Higher Learning Commission for about 10 years and have visited many colleges and have seen lots of ways that the colleges handle the kinds of problems that come up. And it usually is because the faculty and the base of the workers keep things going even though some of the administration might be moving. So it's not atypical, and I think if you're willing to keep putting forth the effort that you do, things will work out just fine, regardless of who's in this position. So my interest in this position came not just from the kinds of things that were interesting to me, but also because I've had experience in just about all those areas, and I thought I probably could help you. And I probably could look at things in a way that was maybe more systematic. I would never, hopefully, say that this is how you have to do it because this is how we did it in Wisconsin. That's sometimes an issue, but I have been at the same place for a while, but we've gone through all kinds of changes and trauma and problems as well, and that's typical of any organization. So really, it's the job and it's the challenge, and it's I will tell you that I've never lived in Wyoming, so if you are asking me why I would move to Wyoming, well, everybody here seems to like it. Some people say it's better than the last place they were, so, you know, what can I say? And I'm in a position in my life, personally, that I can make some moves and have some change in my life. I could also probably stay where I am forever, but it's really an opportunity for me to explore and do something different. So that's my introduction. Now, Mr. Mosher said that you wouldn't be like the Inquisition. So let's see if he's right.
All right. So as you have questions, I'd be happy to bring the mic around to you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Carter. Again, I'm Cher Warren. I'm the director of the TRIO program. As mandated by congressional legislation, community college TRIO programs must ensure that our participants will transfer to four-year colleges at a rate at least equal to or higher than the institutional rates. So, with so much focus on programs of study related to workforce, I fear that we're overlooking the importance of strengthening and/or expanding programs of study that lead to transfer. What's your vision for transfer programs?
Well, I think community colleges have multiple purposes and multiple missions. And I think one of them always is that there are programs that lead to employment, because that's typically why some of those programs in schools started, because the community called for them. But there are lots of two-year colleges that are just as important to students who really want to get their first 2 years accomplished in a way that's oftentimes closer to their homes, closer to their families, sometimes more economical, and sometimes easier to navigate. When I was the Dean of Liberal Arts, we had one of the biggest things, one of the biggest areas was transfer of those areas. And I am a proponent of that because it's something that students want. And I think as community colleges sometimes face enrollment challenges, that it's important to listen to what those students want. And as a continuous improvement college, I think you need to look at what your students are looking for. And if that's still a viable option, then I think two-year colleges should do that. I just have one thing to add that I think is really significant, and that is a lot of times students who transfer from two-year colleges to four-year colleges do better than the native population. And I mean by that the students that were freshmen and sophomore in the four-year. So we gave them a good start.
While you're thinking of a question, I apologize. I forgot to introduce one of my peers that's here. I didn't see her earlier, Brenda Little, who is also on the Board of Trustees, and Carol, who you'd met, who's on the Board of Trustees.
Hi, once again, I'm Brenda Little. I'm on the Board of Trustees, Dr. Carter. In your introductory remarks, you said that you looked through the job description and looked at the kinds of things we need here at LCCC. And then you said, I think I can help you. Were there one or two portions of that job description that really caught your fire, something that you are passionate about, where that is the one or two things that you really think you can come here and make a difference in?
Well, and I'm going to say that I'm not sure that I could make a difference in any one area, because it depends what's been done up to now and how successful it's been, because sometimes things are successful but they're not communicated in a way that people understand how successful they are. And I found that in other colleges, that they're doing a really good job of something, they just don't know they are. So the areas that I would say that I probably could help you the most in, and this is a tricky question because sometimes people don't want to be helped in these two areas, but I'm willing to help, is in the area of student learning assessment, program evaluation, and even accreditation. I mean, and those seem to be areas that are areas that require a certain kind of stamina and understanding, because those are really difficult areas that typically require an evaluation above and beyond the normal job. So, and as far as the passion, I mean, I have been involved in those 3 areas for a majority of my career in my college, and feel like we've done a really good job in moving some of those forward. You're welcome.
Dr. Carter, I'm Doug Wilson, the Program Director for Physical Therapist Assistant, and we have a large health science group here today, as well as on campus. And can you tell me a little bit about your experience with accreditation related to health sciences programs?
Well, and typically those health science programs have third-party accreditation, and the requirements of those accrediting bodies are, in my opinion, much stricter than the HLC, and have almost a prescription of what needs to happen and what has to happen in terms of those. I have not directly worked with third-party accreditation, but when I served as provost, I had to attend the sessions in which the accreditors came and was part of those discussions. But I also know that when I was the provost and had to meet with the faculty, because we had some issue in terms of decreasing the number of special assignments. And one of the areas that really we couldn't decrease was the special assignments for people who are working on their third-party accreditation, because your accreditors require that. And I think that the level of excellence that is received from having that accreditation is really critical to any program. So I don't know specifically about it, but I know that when the programs that I've seen go through it, it's quite, it's almost a year-long event in terms of getting all the documentation and the visits and the data in place.
Can you tell me just quickly some of the other programs that you have been involved with that process?
The third-party accreditation?
Yes.
I think we had occupational therapy. We had, I mean, I'm talking directly where I was there when I had to be part of it. And I know early childhood ed probably isn't one of yours, but that was one we had third-party accreditation for. Surge Tech. I think we did radiography. We didn't have to do nursing that year. So that was a down one. But we have about 20 programs that have external accreditation. I can't remember them all. I'm sorry, Doug. Because I don't want to make them up. Yeah.
I have another question for you, Dr. Carter. One of the challenges that I have seen from the board perspective for a vice president of academic affairs is budgeting. You have several different departments or deans that are coming to you with their budget needs, and then you have to take that to the president to form the entire budget for the college that then is going to come to us, the Board of Trustees. And just from stories I've heard, that's a very difficult challenge because you have a lot of people coming to you with a lot of needs. Can you describe for me, please, what experience you've had in those kinds of budget negotiations and how you yourself go about prioritizing budget requests?
Well, and I'm not going to take credit for this process, but it's one that has evolved in my college that I think has been very successful. And I'll try to describe this for you. So, and it's starting right now in my college, where departments and programs identify needs and budget requests. And through their departments, they prioritize which are the ones that are most essential. And those kind of go up the ladder to the departments and then kind of the area or the bigger division. And a divisional group then looks at them, and we use a set of criteria that link back to our goals, our mission and goals, and make sure that they fit and give scores to each one of those and weight them so that it's kind of a democratic process that involves a lot of integrity, because you can give everything a 9, and then your budget item would get through. But what you really need to do is to make sure everybody's using the same rubric. So we have developed a rubric in which we look at what's most critical for the areas to meet certain of those criteria, and those kind of bubble up to the top. So let's say you have 100 programs, and there are some programs that are more needy because they have a more current need for a specific item or whatever the budget request is. And those typically then go to the top. And so then through a group process, and this would be through all the deans that were in our divisions, would then look at all of those and agree that those would be the top ones. And so then, depending on how much money we have, we work our way down the list. So it doesn't end up being an individual one-on-one request and who got to me first. It really is a shared process in terms of this is how much money we have for these certain areas. And it's capital equipment, and it's construction, and it's, you know, that kind of thing. And then these are the priorities for this year because of this. And they usually go back to the program evaluation process, what was needed, what was identified in that, to make sure that the budget does align in some ways with the requests and the improvement process. So then, the really good thing about this is that what happens is then there becomes a contingency fund, which is available then for emergencies or for things that pop up that you didn't think about. And that really has helped us a lot in terms of identifying money that we hadn't thought of before. And it also changes people's patterns. In the past, we did it all by department, and if I got $100,000 this year, I did everything in my power to get $100,000 next year, if not more. And so then I might end up spending money that I really didn't need just because I might need it again next year. And if I didn't use it, then it would go away. So the process, I mean, it's not a fun process ever, just because somebody's going to end up not getting what they want. But just about everybody gets what they need. Does that help? Yes, thank you. You're welcome. Come on. You have good questions.
I guess you remember me, but I'm Anne Murray, manager
Of course I
institutional
remember
research.
you.
Just wondering, trying to think how to phrase it, so after you said that, I'm on the spot. Tell me how you support professional development for staff, in particular non-faculty employees.
Well, and are you talking about how I personally, or how I mean, I don't have any idea what your process is to provide professional development, but I will tell you that without professional development, your staff probably isn't as good as it could be. So if I were in charge of professional development for staff, which I'm not quite sure how it's done, but I would want to make sure that there were options to help people be better at their jobs and to learn new skills and to make sure that they are doing the best job they can. But I don't know, you know, one of the things that somebody asked me this last week, and I don't know that you were in that group or you watched my video, that your college does support professional development in a way that offers you classes here or at the university for a really reduced rate. I mean, that's a fabulous perk. But if it's not connected to your job or connected to a skill that you need to build, that would be a concern for me if there were no way to identify what needed to happen.
Okay, thank you. I know it was broad, I was just curious.
Okay. Am I so intimidating that? Oh, she's coming back. Hi, Ann.
So as you know, we're one of seven community colleges in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me a little bit about any experience you might have working with other counterparts in a system. We call ourselves a little S system. My counterparts and I do anyway. We're coordinated. We're not a true system like some states have. But part of the responsibility of this position is to sit on the Academic Affairs Council. So could you tell me a little bit of experience you have working with your counterparts, viewing interests of the state, but promoting the interests of the college as well?
Well, I don't know if this video is going to Wisconsin, so. Wisconsin has a system that has 16 districts. And when I was the associate provost and the provost, I served on a committee that had, it was called the ISO, the institutional something or other. That does go SO. I just made that up. Unfortunately, the reason I said about Wisconsin is that we used to always get, it was, Milwaukee is so big, and the college is so big, and it has so many needs because of the population we serve, that we would always get an extraordinary large amount of funding from the state, just because we had to, if the college was going to exist. And we have a lot of students who are in developmental ed and who need special help in all kinds of things just to be able to get through. And we have lots of programs that are pre-programs. We have ESL, basic skills. We even have what's called the Prepared Learner Initiative, which is another band of developmental ed before getting into a program. So unfortunately, Milwaukee would always get a large portion of whatever the funding was, just because of our need and size. But there were many, many times, and when I was the provost and even this last year, when we would have task force or groups to work on certain issues. The last issue I worked on was with a state group where we tried to look at making the process for putting together a program proposal and getting it through the state board was faster. And so in the past it was a 2-year process, and we kind of got it down to 45 days. So, you know, part of it was working with the state people to have them tell us which steps could be eliminated. But they listened to us, and they really made it a lot faster. But I've worked on other projects with program development, program evaluation, curriculum development. I heard that you used to have WIDS. I used to serve on the WIDS task force. Don't blame me. So, does that answer your question? Yeah. And you know, it's a really important thing to do, because sometimes you can share things, sometimes you can learn things that other colleges do. Maybe look at shared programs or shared curriculum that would really help. And you know, with some of the technology that you could use now, you might be able to have programs here that you hadn't had before, and vice versa. Hi, Judy.
Hi there. Say, I just was wondering, you know, from my perspective, a college always works better if the academic and student affairs are working very closely together and collaboratively. Could you talk to me about, or to us about, how you might encourage more of that at the college, and how you yourself have made that real at your campuses?
Mm-hmm. And I don't disagree with you, and I think that when I was a teacher a long time ago, I never knew what those people in student services did. And I think it's really important for instructors to know how students got to where they are in the classroom. And I think we even had a question this morning about faculty not knowing about financial aid and how financial aid affects their students. And you know, even with the new financial aid requirements and the guidelines, they're very different in terms of what amount of loans that students can get, their attendance requirements, and also how long it takes for them to finish. And not that that would change how you offer or how you would look at a student, but I think sometimes it helps to understand what the student had to get through to be in your class. And I think what student services can do, if you look at it in a bigger picture, if you look at instructional areas doing one kind of service and student services doing another kind of service, to me that would be the best relationship, because what you do is you get people into the right places, that you help them stay there. And the right places are the parts of the instructional area. Those are the programs, those are the courses. And I think the best relationships that happen are the ones where, and I'm not sure what your setup is in student services, if you have counselors or advisors or whatever that is, but as much as those people can work with the program or the department people so that they both understand what's going on, and if changes happen that they know what's going on, it'd be really helpful. I think it has to go together.
Dr. Carter, in Wyoming there's one university and 7 community colleges, and that makes for an interesting relationship. Can you give us an example of how that works, where you come from, and maybe some experience you've had working with a university, and maybe an experience that have maybe collaborative in nature that has gone really well, and maybe one that has not?
Well, I can give you the ones that work well. We have a number of transfer agreements, and we have transfer days when the colleges come to our school and look for students and do kind of recruitment. We also set up a 2+2+2 kind of program where you start even with the high school, and the high school, and it's an engineering, where they go from high school to our college to an engineering college, which isn't a university, but it's a private college. So I think that, and you asked that question before about transfer, I think when you look at what students want to be able to do, their final goal, and is anything you can do to get them there would probably be what I would aim for. Now you're thinking about a bad experience I've had in terms of students not being successful, or a college not taking credits, or a college not wanting to take credits. I'm not sure what you mean, Doug.
Well, I suppose maybe where you had a challenge, and maybe how you dealt with that challenge.
No, I don't have an experience. Do you have an experience where it doesn't work? That you must be thinking of something. Okay.
Hello, I'm Juan Antonio Bernabeo from Languages.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. And I'm sorry I don't speak German. I have just a quick question in regards to concurrent enrollment. I would like to know, how do you see the role of the administration in regards to concurrent enrollment?
You mean with high schools?
Correct.
Well, when it works great.
But what should the administration role be? Is there anything, any oversight that should the administration take responsibility for?
Well, I think that the one thing I would look for is that the students in the high school have the same exact requirements, and that they are being prepared the same way that they would be in a college. And sometimes that means that the faculty in the high schools have to have a certain level of credential and have to follow the same curriculum, because it's the same course. You end up getting a transcript for the same course, so it should have the same rigor. Sometimes it's not as perfect as that, and so it's hard to know without faculty input. So when a student then transfers or comes to the college, sometimes you don't know until it's too late that it doesn't work. And in some cases, I know that we had those kinds of agreements with high schools, and we gave our high school students tests, that we would not give them the credit until they completed a written test for us, just because we wanted to make sure the rigor was there. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
My name is Jean Slomke, and I teach nursing. We have a really exciting movement here in Wyoming in that the nursing faculty have been working statewide to develop a common curriculum.
A what curriculum?
A common
Okay.
curriculum with 1 year prerequisites, 2 years to an associate's degree, and a third year or one more year to a bachelor's degree. And it is still slated to go fall of 2014. And
So
we're
3 years to a bachelor's degree? Oh,
four.
Okay.
1 year prerequisites, 2 to an associate, and 1 additional year to a bachelor's.
Okay.
So we are very well tasked and working incredibly hard and well together as a state in nursing. And at this point, we don't foresee any issues. However, with any task like this, there will be issues that occur between agreements, and it may not be even in the nursing classes.
Right.
How would you be prepared or able to help us negotiate some of those rocks in the roads that we aren't necessarily anticipating?
Are the rocks before or after?
Probably yes.
Okay. Well, I know that lots of states have a common curriculum, just because it's easier and students could transfer back and forth if they needed to. And so a lot of that work is more organizing it and making sure everybody's on the same page and holds to the same standards. So I think that's the first thing, is that everybody understands, and especially in nursing, I know it's quite rigorous, and I don't know if you have expectations of people with certain grade point averages moving on and that kind of thing. So in terms of before, I would want to make sure everybody had the same structure in place and the same kinds of rules, because again, entrance into your program has probably some specific needs, and the prerequisite to have specific needs. I don't know, there are sometimes students have to take classes over, and that might be a question. If a student fails, how many times can they take a class over? If they fail a certain part, what's going to happen? So in some ways, it's more of an administrative thing in terms of the faculty and the department itself making sure that it has those standards. I think when the students finally move on to the 4-year, and I haven't heard of that model where they only have to go for 1 more year, and I think it's very generous of the 4 years, because usually they don't accept just 1 year. I think that if you had everybody prepared the way that they needed to be prepared, then that next step would be probably more successful. So, but I'm sure that as you roll this out, there are going to be lots of things that you never anticipated and issues that are going to come up. So I think if that's the way it's going, I would be as supportive as I could be in any way I could.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Dr. Carter. I'm Randy Fetzer, teach humanities here on campus. 2 questions. Brewers or Packers? Baseball or football fan?
What? I have to pick one?
What? No. That's telling. In a more serious nature.
Probably the Packers.
Oh, okay. Serious question. Could you articulate your view regarding academic alignment across multiple campus situations? You mentioned that you had been involved on a branch campus.
Well, the way I see it, are you talking about the 2 campuses or the multiple campuses you have? Okay. If you get a degree from LCCC, is that what you say? It should mean the same thing no matter where you go. And in my head, I would think that the degree would be the same no matter what campus you're on. So if there were an English 1010 course, no matter where it was taught, it should be taught the same, at least with the same outcomes or competencies. Now, how you deliver it and the kinds of activities that get you there, I have much more, I think I'm a little more flexible in terms of that, but because of the academic freedom piece and how creative you want to be and how you structure your activities or how they flow, if it makes sense. But if the degree comes from LCCC, it should be the same no matter where it comes from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And what about you? Are you a Packers fan? Oh,
It's
I
Broncos or
thought
Rockies?
like Rocky, like the boxer. Where do
You've
the Rockies
not been-
play? Where are the Rockies from? Oh, Colorado. Okay.
You are drinking Old Milwaukee. Here we would drink Coors at Coors
I've
Field.
never had a Coors.
So, Dr. Carter, suppose you were the successful candidate. What would be your priority or priorities for your first month here?
I would want to know who everybody was.
How would you do that?
I'd go ask them who they were. I already know who you are. So I got a couple people down. And the reason I say that is, you know, as a vice president, I think of myself more as a general contractor, that I don't do all the work, but I have to know who's doing what. And that would be really important to me, to know who does what and who does nothing all day and how I can get that job. And I'm serious about that, because I think that the better, you know, that you know people and you know what their strengths are, I think it's easier to work with them.
Thank you.
Dr. Carter, piggybacking on that a bit, tell me about your experiences in working with boards of trustees. Have you, do you go to board meetings now and interact with the trustees, or how would you, what has been your experience with the board?
I have been going to board meetings for the last 6 years, and we have monthly meetings and we have subcommittee meetings that I've been attending. I have also had the great privilege on multiple occasions to do what's called a board retreat, in which I would work with the board members. Sometimes it was looking at the mission, sometimes looking at the accreditation things that went on. And so I've had pretty personal relationships with them in terms of helping them get to that point of understanding what was going on at the college. So I understand their role. I've worked with them. I've also worked with, as a consultant evaluator, there would always be an instance where we would have to meet and ask questions of the Board of Trustees, whatever college it is, to see if they're meeting the certain kinds of expectations from the accrediting body.
I just want to tag along a little bit on working with boards. One of the things we're constantly concerned about is whether or not we're pursuing the appropriate goals. The board is responsible for setting the direction, but of course that's under advice from the experts, all the folks on the campus and in the community. So we've got a lot of experts who are trying to help us with that, and we appreciate that. But there is a thing we throw out, strategic plans and academic plans. And could you tell me your vision of an academic plan? What, you know, just the broad branches?
Of an academic plan?
Yes.
Well, an academic plan is something that typically a college pursues if they want to make changes or if they want to vision out where their campus is going to be. And community colleges don't often have academic plans because they basically keep doing what they've been doing. And I think that for me, an academic plan would have to include where you are now, where the community may want you to be in the next 5 years, and have you looked at emerging kinds of activities, occupations, and roles that the college can play. So it would involve input from the current stakeholders and external people as well as students and past students, to make sure that what they got we can incorporate into the plan for the future.
And following up on that, how would you see your role, or what would you vision yourself doing to support the achievement of that, or getting the resources, if you would, to achieve that in the community, your role in the community?
Well, and that's one reason two-year colleges don't do academic plans, is because in my head, I don't see how an academic plan could be dissimilar than its strategic plan of the college. And so if you look at what the goals are for the college, it's really more specifically how the academics would get to that point. So are you asking me how I would get people to be involved in the questioning of that?
No, once it's in place, your involvement in the community.
Oh, well, I think that depending on who helped me and what the communication process is, I would keep them informed at least yearly of our accomplishments and what's been going on. So if you wanted to add a new program and really change the focus of where you're going, or like you were saying, add another a campus for UW on this campus, or a building, that would be a giant change that people should know about and how it's doing. And it may not be a separate kind of report to the community. It might be incorporated in some other annual communication that goes out.
Thank you. Other questions? We've got a little bit more time here.
Hi, Dr. Carter. Again, Valerie from nursing. You spoke a little bit earlier today about your experience with developmental programs. Could you give us some information about
My
your
experience?
experience and what you see as helping towards that retention completion goal that community colleges are often faced with?
Well, I'll start at the beginning. When I started working at MATC, I was teaching GED, basic skills, and some of the kind of developmental courses at my college. And I did that for, I'm going to say, about 10 years, and then started teaching in liberal arts in the reading and communications courses. So I've been involved in developmental ed from a practitioner. I was a curriculum coordinator. I was the instructional chair of the department. I worked with our community-based organizations that did literacy kinds of things. We did a lot of teacher training in those areas. You really need to work on specific skills to keep adults motivated to improve their basic skills. So I taught all the areas of basic skills, if you will, and I don't know if you have a similar thing here. And I also oversaw the faculty when I was the instructional chair, so I had to do faculty evaluations, and I hired some part-time faculty as well. When I was the dean of liberal arts, I'll move up to that point because in the interim I had done some other things. One of them was to work in an academic support center and bring in a writing center to the college, which was really critical. But when I was the dean of liberal arts, the state put together a process called the Prepared Learner Initiative, and I referred to that just a little bit ago. And what that was kind of an idea which really benefited Milwaukee because it's so big and it's got so many people who could benefit from that program, was the students could identify a program, take these PLI classes in English, reading, math, or a success class, and get financial aid because they were in a program. Whereas if they weren't in the PLI class, they would either have to take a basic skills course to get their skills up, and then they would not get financial aid, or they would have to retake our entrance level test enough in order for their skills to be up, which doesn't really mean they'd be successful. So I think the work that I did with the PLI group, and I had different kinds of involvement in that. I worked on the state group, on the success class, and the success class was viewed by some people as a study skills class, and we changed the model to be more of a psychosocial approach. We used a model from, it's called OnCourse, and it's a way to help students understand their responsibility in the learning process and to not be victims of their circumstances or their challenges. So it sounds kind of like a weird class, but it really does empower people in a way that reading and English don't at all. And what we were able to do in PLI, and PLI unfortunately has become a growth industry, and I say that because personally it's sad that that's the area that we get the most students in. But it was under Gen Ed, under the liberal arts area. And it was taught by the faculty in there who had to be specially trained or have the credentials to be able to do that. So at this point, I'm not quite sure, since that's not my division anymore, if it's really getting students into the program successfully and matriculating them into the programs, because there still are requirements for certain things, and a lot of our students have a really hard time with math and take programs that have no math just because they have such a low level of math ability. But as far as understanding what needs to happen and what has happened, I've kind of run the gamut on that in terms of doing it as an instructor, as a faculty member, as an instructional chair, and then also as an administrator. Did that answer your question? Okay, thanks, Valerie.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Rakshi. I work with the GERA program. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit or describe your leadership style with the different roles that you play with the different college entities, such as the Board of Trustees, the faculty, and the staff.
Okay. Well, that's always a question that I expect because people like to have that question, and I don't have a good answer because I would say I was a leader who was probably more democratic than not. But I also want to be a leader who is an informed leader and not one to tell somebody what to do without knowing why they've done it the other way first. And I've had bosses who would do that, and it's really annoying because sometimes you do it the way you do it because that's the way it needs to be done, even though I don't agree with it. So I typically am flexible in terms of a little bit of inconsistency, not in terms of how I handle things, but why things happen. I really do believe in a structure kind of thing, is that if you have a problem with a person, you should go to them first. And if you can't resolve it, you go to the next step and you work your way up instead of coming to me first. I think it doesn't help because I have to go back. And in my role now, that's basically all I do is go back because people haven't followed the process, which I think is important if there's an issue. So as a leader, I think I need to know what's going on. I need to know what the goals are, and I need to know what processes you have in place. And when I come to a different place, I mean, that's one of the challenges is I'm not sure of, when you ask me some of these questions, I don't know what you do now. So I have to spend some time figuring out what you do and then making sure that I fit in. And there are times when I've had to make decisions and I've had to do something and then tell everybody why I did it. And I think I explained it one time when I closed the college. Well, you don't know about that if you haven't seen the other video. But sometimes you just have to make a decision and you have to live with it, and you try to make the best decision that you can at that time with information you have. And I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I have usually given the benefit to the students when I can. When I was the Dean of Liberal Arts, the thing I had complaints about most was grades. And nobody can change a grade but a teacher from where I grew up. I don't know if that's true here. Is it? Should be. Okay. Going with that. Should be. And there should be a reason. I mean, that's the other thing, is that sometimes being a leader means you're a good listener. And I think that's a really important piece as well.
We're going to pass the mic back and forth for a second. When there is a conflict between a student and an instructor or administrator, and then it comes to you, could you describe that process of how you would help resolve that?
Sure. I would, first of all, excuse me, my nose is running. Is that part of the altitude? Is it?
And the wind.
And the wind? I wasn't even in the wind. Okay. I'm sorry. So in my head, I have this picture of a student who comes to me and complains about a teacher. Not that that would ever happen anyplace else. So I say to the student, first of all, and this is actually something I'm working on my campus, is that we have multiple forms depending on who you go to. And it's really, really annoying to have multiple processes. So the student then goes shopping for the best way to get whatever he or she wants. Now, that's pretty smart, but it doesn't really solve the problem, because typically the problem is the student doesn't like the answer. That's not all the time, though, because there's blame to be shared. So what I would do, I would listen to the student, and I would ask that student to write out their complaint so that I have some evidence to go back on and talk. Because sometimes the perception of what the problem is part of the problem. Then if the issue would then be discussed with the instructor, and I would ask the instructor the same thing of what happened, what do you remember? And then if possible, if the instructor can mediate and solve the issue, which sometimes happens, then that would be fine. And if not, then I would want to have the instructor and the student together if possible to try to listen to see what happened and if there's a way to mediate that part. Sometimes there isn't a good answer, and sometimes the student ends up having to challenge the grade, and I don't know if you have a process for that. And I'm not sure if your students are successful in their challenges. It depends. So it could change. So it could go back to the instructor making a decision a different way or providing another alternative for the student. So it really depends. I mean, I think that I would want to hear both sides and to try to work out an agreement that wouldn't necessarily challenge the instructor to do something special that he or she wouldn't do for somebody else, or to provide a different environment, maybe to take a test or look at a timeline differently depending on the circumstances.
I have one more question. Quick, before Ed gets here. You've been a teacher and you've been an instructor and faculty. What do you see as the community college's role with the secondary students, as they're often referred to their community colleges?
What do you mean the secondary students?
The high school students, junior high kids. What do you see the community college doing to reach out to those students?
Oh, that's a really important role. I think that in my community, a lot of students don't know what our college offers, and I think that the more students in junior high and high school know what's available to them and are more informed, I think the better it is for everybody. I think if they knew what programs were offered and how easy it could be to go there and why they should go there and what they should expect, you're building your client base. And the more you can do that, the better. I mean, it's like, you know, when one child sees his brother or sister going to a certain place, they want to go there too. And I think the more you can build that and show what's important and why it's important, the better.
Following up with that, do you have or have you been associated with a program that provides for faculty involvement within the educational districts that they're involved in, the K through 12?
Well, I haven't been involved directly where a faculty member would teach in another district or teach in the K-12 district. Is that what you mean? Yes. I haven't had that experience. I've had experience where the students come to the college while they're still in high school. And I've also had the experience where the college teachers reach out to the high schools in different ways to have them understand what their program is or have them understand what the expectations are, what grades they need to have in order to be successful at the next level. But do you have faculty? No, your last point. Okay. Okay. Hi.
Hi, welcome. I'm Tammy Canny. I'm Disability Support Services Coordinator for our campus. And just wanted to inquire on your knowledge as far as ADA compliance and how in the past maybe you've helped students and faculty work out some of those compliance issues while protecting program integrity.
Well, are you talking about making sure that the students get the services that they need to be successful and to like testing situations or note takers or that kind of thing?
For example, if there was a complaint filed as far as ADA compliance went from a student, saying a faculty member wasn't complying because they felt it impacted program integrity,
Okay.
where would be your balance to make sure the students' needs were met while protecting the college liability-wise and stuff?
Well, and my first question would be, are there requirements of a program that need to be met? let's say, for instance, that you had to be able to lift something and you're in a wheelchair. So should you even be able to get into the program if you can't physically do something? And I'm not sure if you have those kinds of requirements of your programs or if you have identified those already. Because there are some things that some people can't do. I mean, just because of a disability. So I think ADA is a federal requirement. But I also know that there are some programs that sometimes can't meet all the ADA restrictions if they haven't informed the students ahead of time.
We're at the end here. I want to say thanks, but before we close it off, I'd like to give you the opportunity to provide any closing statements you might to this group. And then we are going to let her have a break here before she goes into her next.
He's laughing now. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. And I know that I've heard that you've been working at this a while. And I appreciate having the opportunity to meet with you and hopefully answer your questions. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your interest and the care that you have of this college. So thank you.